Hello, it's only been 14 days since we last talked to you. This is John Saltas, one of the two Bingham boys, of which I said last time there are very few remaining, but there actually are few. I'm kind of looking off in the distance. Ron's coming. He's late as usual. He tells me, like, oh, let's start at noon, and he shows up at 1, 2, 3 o'clock. Luckily today, he's only a couple minutes late, but where in the hell you been, Ron?
Well, I have been on a trek to the past.
Whoa.
And as you'll see, I brought somebody with us.
I do see that. And
somebody that you know. We'll mention that gentleman here in a minute. But I've been kind of all over the country thinking about today's topic, including out at the old printing press at the Bingham Bulletin in West Jordan, when I remember it most, but I also remember it up on Main Street in Bingham. But also, I've been to Baltimore, looking over the Inner Harbor. Went to Windsor in Canada, Windsor, Ontario, Canada.
Really?
Yep. Detroit, Michigan. My journey for today's Bingham Boys podcast also took me to Social Hall Avenue in Salt Lake City.
I saw a fight or two there and a lot of pot smoking.
Yeah, well, that was because that's where the journalists hung out that were for KTVX.
When you used to be able to drag State Street, it was quite often everybody pulled into Social Hall Avenue and hung out there for a while.
Well, I was thinking about it in a different way because my guest today, and we'll get to the point, is a man you know and I know, and a man that I have great respect for as a journalist and who worked in Salt Lake City, among other places, including Detroit and Windsor, Ontario. He'll tell us a little bit about that. An Ohio native, it's Randall Carlisle. Randall, welcome to the Bingham Boys podcast.
Randall, been a while.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm honored to be I consider you guys to be part of the liberal fabric of Utah.
Well, that's high praise from a guy from Ohio.
Like extremely well-known liberal fabric of Utah. And I followed you, Ron, in all my years working in news here for all the famous trials that you were involved in. And I followed John for the Salt Lake City Weekly forever and ever.
I think we followed each other into some pretty weird places too, Randall.
That's
some good times.
Back in the day, I think I ran into you at a few watering holes.
Yeah, we did. Yes. We had some good times.
Yes. I don't remember.
I don't either.
Well,
even if I did, I wouldn't talk about
it. One of the things about that is that you read Pete Hamill's book, A Drinking Life.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I think of, we're going to talk about journalism today, ladies and gentlemen, but you think about those times and when my brother started, and we know that he had some issues, but he was a great journalist. Being a journalist meant that you met sources, friends, competitors, the electronic media met the print media, you met people at watering holes.
Yes.
And that was a common occurrence forever. I mean, all of the great writers, all the great newspaper people, and then ultimately the electronic media people, the radio people, the TV people, they had their specific places that they met, and people knew that. And if somebody wanted to drop a dime on somebody, they knew where they could find you.
Sure.
And I think back about those things, going all the way back to, Hearst's writers back in New York City, or, the people that wrote for the New Yorker, or here, there were places that people met. And we've talked about this. I wanted to follow my brother into journalism, and I didn't do so except when I wrote for you and a few other places. But I always admired the journalistic ideal, which was to find the truth and pursue it to the end.
Well, Randall, I don't know when you began in Salt Lake. I don't even know if
1980.
1980. Mm-hmm. So somewhere predating that, myself and many others followed Watergate as a path into, what it meant to be a journalist in the truest sense, to truth to power kind of stuff, and anything can happen, bring down the walls of power. Was that Nixon era or that Watergate era part of your reason to get in, or was it your dashingly good looks and your great hair, because
That's
Bill's
right.
sitting over there, and Bill named you best hair in Salt Lake.
Best hair of Salt Lake.
Yeah.
That was front cover.
Front cover,
Yeah.
and by God, it was a
Seriously.
moving issue. It set records.
Yeah, well.
It really did. It really
Is that
did.
true?
And you were such a good sport about that.
Well,
And and it moved.
your photographer who came out to the studio, and he knew what he wanted, but I didn't know what he wanted because I didn't know
we
what the
didn't know the
award
answer
was going to be. So
Yeah.
it takes shots of me sitting on the set, looking stern and newsy and everything. And then towards the end, he says, "Can I, just for fun, can I get you looking
Look it
up
up.
to your hair and get a shot of that?" And I should have known right then, but I went along with it, and that's the picture that came out.
And boy, fame was made.
There
Yeah.
you go.
But it was that I don't want to distract too much, but that was a good. It just shows Randall's good nature and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he was dominant in this market. We know that. But why did you get into journalism? Broadcasting,
I guess I won the Ohio State radio announcing contest when I was 14, was offered a job at this little radio station in this little town where I grew up,
Name your town.
Worcester, Ohio, and that's spelled Wooster.
Not like Worcester, Massachusetts.
No, but it's said the exact same way, and most people call it Wooster, and I think that makes it sound like a hick town, but it is.
There you
So what can I say? Anyway, I worked in radio there, then I went to school at Ohio State and worked in radio there, went to Akron, then I went to Detroit, Windsor, and then I saw that the main anchor guy, the number one anchor in Detroit, there was a headline in the paper said $100,000 a year salary for Bill Bonds. And I thought,
That's a raise.
maybe I should get
bad
into TV.
idea.
So I had trouble getting my first TV job because it was all catch-22. It was like, well, you're a good news guy, but you don't have any TV experience. The only station that would hire me is one in Colorado Springs. So I went there. Then I went to Dayton, then I came to Salt Lake, then I went to Minneapolis, then I went to Dallas, then I came back to Salt Lake. So
There we go.
It's fascinating to hear the stories of the people in your past vocation and how they had to go around. It's like all the
Sure.
disc jockeys,
Yeah.
and all the places that they worked. But you had to have a true love with what you were doing.
I found it interesting, exciting, and it was like during Vietnam War days. So we covered protests, covered racial riots.
Right.
I was at Kent State during the shootings, and that really pissed me off because it was, and we were stupid because. We were on the Commons that day, and we knew that the National Guard had come in 3 or 4 days before because somebody had burned down the ROTC building.
Right.
And it seemed like everything was sort of peaceful, and Kent, there's only 2 or 3 roads into Kent, and they were all blocked by like tanks, which was sort of weird. And then for that day when the students were shot, we made this. I was stupid, and I think most of the news guys were. That we didn't think that the guns were loaded,
Right.
That the guardsmen had, because they had bayonets on them, and they're looking at the students. I thought there's no way somebody would have loaded weapons aimed at a bunch of students who weren't doing anything except protesting. And then all of a sudden, one guardsman started firing, and the rest followed suit. And then we saw some people going down. It was like, whoa, And so, as covering stuff like that was exciting at that age. I was in my early 20s.
Sure.
And then there was also the desire to be able to tell the truth, and establish contacts with people. That's what you guys were talking about that earlier, and that's the difference between what's going on now and what was happening back then. Back in those days, the police trusted the media a lot more. The prosecutors trusted the media. I think defense attorneys trusted if you knew the right people.
You knew that. My deal always was. My brother and I talked a lot about it. My brother was by then back in Baltimore when I was starting to pick up high-profile cases, and I did fairly early in my career. And we talked about how I would deal with the media, what I would think. And I'll tell you why, because I told him there was a media guy. He was from KSL. And I had talked to him. He had been a friend of my brother's, and I thought he was going to do me a solid because I talked to him. And he buried me. And so I had a murder case down in San Pete County. I was a young lawyer. I mean, we're talking 78. I'd only been out of school 3 years, and I had a capital murder case down in San Pete County. And this same guy called me and said, "When's the next hearing?" And I said, "Well, they called that other one off. It's tomorrow." And of course, there was no hearing. Well, I told my brother that, and he goes, "You're a dumbass. That's not what you do. If you want to even up the score, you just tell him, you screwed me. Don't call me." And he said, "But you've hurt yourself there." And so my brother talked to me about stuff like that. And the deal with me was, and it was different then too, because you had real professionals that were doing it, and with news broadcasters and radio broadcasters, you actually talked to them. You weren't talking through someone. You weren't getting approval from their cameraman or whatever, who were great people, by the way. But you knew who you could trust. And if it was somebody I would trust, I'd never violate any privileged information. Sure. But if they wanted to talk about it, I would talk to them. I talked to you, and I talked to people from, you both worked both at KUTV and KTVX, right, and others. Terry Wood I knew pretty well, and I knew I could talk to him. Bob Loy, sure. John Harrington. There were a lot of people that I really trusted, but that was the deal, I think, with a lot of us back then. And then there were people that would come in and want to tell you what you should say and stuff like that, which is laughable. But that's why we got along. I think we all got along pretty well there, and I think people had a better sense of what cases were really about than they.
Did you broadcast from Social Hall?
No, I came in just after Channel 2 had left Social Hall and moved to a new building out in West Valley.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So back then, Ron had mentioned earlier that all the media used to hang out, and
there was a bar that they all went to.
They all went to the Wasatch Front.
Well, okay, I've
been
there.
They'd walk over to the Wasatch Front after they got off their shift. Dick Allgaier would be one, and Terry Wood would come over, and a couple sports guys.
Allgaier was a pretty good guy too.
Yeah, and then he would. I mean, they were sort of like, "Oh wow, the stars are here." Whenever 11 o'clock,
but that's true.
And so the crowd would go, "Wow," But besides that, there was Cabana Club. A few journalists would hang out in there, and that's where all the nefarious everything went on in the old Cabana Club, which is now Green Pig.
Haggard's?
Well, that became Port of Call.
Yeah.
Port of Call was where we did. I mean, our offices were in the same building. And then one door down after some expansion. But we'd be there with radio, TV guys and other print guys all the time, the ones that would partake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because in this community, there wasn't really a strong press club. Because usually in other cities, like in Denver, I went in there one time, and it's a real little bar, And in Utah, whereas you got half the media is going to come to your bar. So those of us who did. We had a pretty good time doing it.
But, the thing that upsets me is that guy who burned you, and because we valued that. That I could call you up and not to ask privilege and information, but like how long do you think the jury's going to be out on this or something?
Or it would even be something as, what's going to happen today? Is this going to be meaningful? And I always try to be decent to people. Go, look, really, don't waste your time. We're going to go in and get a date. I'll call you with the date, because we didn't have the internet and stuff like that if you want, just because a lot of the people became friends. I mean, you and I were friendly, and like I say, a lot of the other ones, and then the people that also for the print media, Mike Carter and I were pretty good friends. We had a little bit of a falling out, again, over something that he'd asked me in confidence, and I gave him the answer. Again, not privileged or anything, but say no, and then he burned me on it. But the deal was, it was cool too, because it wasn't just meeting people at bars or stuff like that. you would go to other things and see people there. You would say hello. You'd stand and bullshit for a little bit, and there wasn't the standoffishness between us. And that gets to a point. So last week, or this week, earlier this week, Donald Trump fired on a female reporter, African-American female
Hey,
reporter.
Peggy, are you
Settled,
stupid?
but it's not any reporter. It's the black female
Female
reporters,
reporter.
plural.
Plural.
He had
Rachel
some white
Scott-
female reporters,
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Well, I'm plural.
Yeah.
More than black female, any black female reporter
Yeah.
first, and then women reporters second, and the guys just sit there like they've been castrated or something. They can't even follow up.
And that's my question to both of you. And again, the premise of this Bingham Boys today is two guys I really admire who really made a difference in Utah journalism. And I think of that when I saw this most latest deal where Trump does this. I can't imagine being a reporter there going and then not just standing up and asking the very same question that he put her down for. I saw that happen. I think it's what my brother would have done. I think it's what both of you would have done. So you're there and you're interviewing somebody for Channel 4 and somebody puts down your brother or sister reporter like that. Aren't you going to ask the same question? Aren't you going to stand up to him?
Yes, but I sort of understand their thinking, because if they're assigned to the White House or to the president, and if they stood up for Rachel Scott or something, they'd be banned from the White House. So, what do you...
But that would have...
Okay, so, that is what's happened now. So
That is what's
much
happened.
of the press corps is not even legit press corps, what I would call legit
Right.
press corps people. He's replaced a whole bunch of them with people who ask, what did you have for breakfast?
Right. How come
Hey,
you look so good?
Yeah, boy, did you ever... You sure bounded down those steps. You must be in great physical shape today. And
You had your orange juice.
You had your
Yeah.
orange juice, obviously. I see
It's
what
all
you-
over your
I see what
face.
you did there. But so a whole bunch of them are of that ilk. Then you have the ones that just like Peter Ducey's and so on. They're not that bad, but they're right next to it. They're very idiocy-adjacent when it comes to that, and who never ask really, really tough
Still
questions.
that line.
Okay.
Idiocy-adjacent.
Idiocy-adjacent.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
So, yeah, I mean, and there's a couple of those. And then I don't understand why the John Carls and some of these other ones don't just say, hey, wait a minute. They don't have to say the same question yet. I've seen that happen in
Yeah.
years past.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't remember the exact time or whatever it was. It could have been, Sam Donaldson asking the follow-up or somebody of that nature. Could have been.
I think it was Donaldson. Remember the lady that was
Helen Thomas.
Helen Thomas.
That's
and
right.
I don't know who it was. I don't think it was Reagan. It may have been Bush Jr. Was rude to her on a question she asked. And it was Donaldson who stood up and looked at him, paused for all the dramatic effect you could get out of it and asked him the same bloody question. Exactly the same
Jim
question.
Acosta used to do that. They're right on their ears. Maybe they're better off financially, but what the loss is, people are not asking the hard questions. So whether they followed up and lost their right to be there, then you got the station to answer to, the network and all that shit.
I get it.
So, I don't. Because in the former days of public journalism, which is, what the Greek word of it is public writing, demisiografia,
Oh, yeah. Okay. So,
public first writing,
Right.
as opposed to profit first journalism. That's what we have today.
Right.
Two different things. So, when 2 or 3 of the networks have been sued by this guy and paid $12 million, I think is what CBS paid or something like that.
15,
15.
something.
Yeah. So it's like all of a sudden you don't want your stockholders say stop. Okay. And there's nobody to stand up and not stop.
Now, the tragedy of that, and I'll just interrupt quickly, they settled those cases.
Donald, he's never won a case. You know that as an attorney.
And he
Explain
would
it.
have.
He would have lost those
He would have.
cases. And that's one of the tragedies. But go ahead.
Well, I want to know more about that because really he hasn't won. As an attorney,
No.
we should speak that sometime. He's threatened with grandiose, whatever it is, tactics and everything, and got settlements.
Yeah.
That's not a win.
Sounds a
So
little bit
anyway,
like Roy Cohn.
somebody should have just asked the very basic decency question. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Why do
you do that to people?
Yeah.
What does this tell the world? What kind of messaging is this? What you just did to tell the world, to tell anybody, tell children of America what they can try to grow up to be, and then all of a sudden they can't because somebody like you is a barrier. Just ask the human decency question, get kicked onto the street, and get out of there.
But then you don't have your job.
Okay? Yeah, but you're not going to have it either way. So if I was going to do it, I'd do it that way and just say, go ahead.
I understand, and Randall brings stuff to the table that we otherwise wouldn't know. I mean, there was a federal judge who picked on a particular prosecutor all the time, and it's a judge actually that I like quite a bit, but he's now deceased. And we were doing an argument, and this prosecutor, he didn't like her, and he jumped her rudely. And I stood up. He was talking to her, and he goes, "Do you have something to say, Mr. Yengich?" I said, "Yeah, I think you owe her an apology. You shouldn't. She didn't deserve that, Judge."
You said that to a federal judge?
Yeah, hell yeah. It's not their courtroom, it's mine. And he looked at me, and I said, "Your Honor, she's trying to make an argument, and I disagree with her argument, but I just don't think that's how we should do it."
Yeah.
And he threw his file. He threw the file off the desk and left the bench.
Really?
Yeah. It was kind of an interesting thing. People around the courthouse knew. Ultimately, I am told, because he didn't do it to me, that he did in fact at some point reconcile with this particular prosecutor and indicated, he apologized to her.
Well, Trump will never.
But
apologize. One of his is not to apologize.
I had one thing.
I've never heard him say I'm sorry.
I had one thing that, again, somebody that's working for somebody else didn't have. I work for myself, and it was one of those deals. I do think this, though. I think when you get an opportunity to stand up for that, sometimes it's hard, and there may be repercussions. I thought I may not be appearing in front of him again. But, you just at times you just go, okay, enough.
It is enough, because it's been going on for 2 years, and I've just never seen that before. I've seen, even when George Bush got a shoe thrown at him, at least he ducked out of the way and kind of smiled,
Right.
But, I've never seen this degree. There's certainly times they've seethed and been mad at who's ever in front of them, but they haven't done this like this. In fact, some of the older generation of presidents, Johnson was one, have a terrible relationship with guys and go have a bourbon with them.
Have a beer with
so,
them.
that doesn't exist anymore, and this is bad for us.
It's bad for us also information-wise.
The questions stop being asked, though.
Right.
The Rachel Scotts quit asking that
exactly.
question.
Yeah.
And then
because he's going to come out and put you down.
Well, because what she was talking about in that case was the ballroom.
Right.
Either it was at that or the pool. Either one has gone 10 times over budget, which he says is under the first budget, which was $1.5 million for both of them, one of them, and 15 for the. It doesn't matter. It's just that we have the right to know. When he says, "Who are you? Who do you think you are? You're stupid," he's telling us all that we are stupid.
Oh, of course
Those reporters are asking questions on behalf of us.
Right.
Not to serve him.
Right, and that's the function that should be the function of journalists. So now it's just it's actually a staged occurrence every day at the White House.
Every day.
So you did.
My phone, a little interference with audio.
Just a little noise.
Okay.
I'm
sorry about that.
Your engineer at the station would give you hell.
Well, I wouldn't have my phone either. I wouldn't have my phone there. So,
when you look back on your time, when lawyers get together, I was with a group of lawyers a week or two ago it was at a function. Talking about some young lawyers who had tried some cases. We were there to kind of give them support. And when old lawyers get together, this is inevitably what comes up. And I'm talking people of my generation and the generation immediately before me, the few that are left, that we're glad we were practiced law when we did, because it's a shit show now, and everything is on text and everything is on email, and nobody wants to communicate. There is no communication, which is to say, with one another, discussing things, and how lucky we were to have judges that some we didn't like, some we didn't, but we kind of knew what was going on. There wasn't the political influence in the judiciary. There wasn't so much of what goes on. Nothing gets done. Everybody's afraid to make a decision, and the things that old lawyers bitch about. But Do you feel that way? You, both of you, do you feel that way, that you feel like you were lucky to be great journalists at the time that you got that call?
Times have changed so much that I would not want to be a quote journalist right now, because there aren't really very many real journalists left. And here's the thing people have to understand is that money is the biggest reason there aren't good journalists left. Because if you take a TV station, back when you guys were talking about the old days back on Social Hall Avenue and some of the old reporters and things like that, they paid us very good money.
Yeah.
They treated us very well. But you only had, back then, you had 3 stations you could watch. Fox didn't exist, satellite, cable didn't exist. So out of the whole population of Utah, you could only watch 3 different sources. So we had this huge advertising pie, and it didn't matter whether you were number 1, 2, or 3. You still, the stations made tons of money.
Right.
You know, and we were owned by a wonderful family, the Hatch family.
Right.
And good old George, who was at the helm of it, if KSL got another live truck, all we had to do was say, George, KSL just got a live truck, and he said, well, then go out and buy one.
Yeah.
You know, and those were the days that they paid us well, and so you got the best and the brightest, and people didn't ever just come out of college and work in the size of a market of Salt Lake City.
Right.
Now, almost everybody who works at TV stations, except for the old timers, are just directly out of college. You had to go to some small town in Idaho or something before you could come here.
Well, cookie cutter TV reporters are one of the banes. I mean, I still did some fairly significant public cases in the last 10 years of my career, and they all looked alike, and they didn't know anything about the law. They didn't know the difference between a preliminary hearing and the Watusi, and they would ask questions to me, after we've just done an argument, I would come out, and they would want to talk, and they would say, what is your name, and what side were you on? Seriously, I mean, those are the questions. And you'd go on the camera.
What side were you on?
Yeah, right.
Prosecutor or defense?
Yeah, exactly. And the camera people, and there were men and women. I mean, they'd have the camera filming, and they would be. It was like, I'm sorry, I really, But that's what we got. And so again, just from my perspective as a lawyer, I couldn't talk to those people give a good sound bite when they don't know what's really going on. And I say this, I don't mean it in a mean way. I think I've said it before. We talked about this a little bit. They're just basically out of Brigham Young University journalism school.
Right.
Well, they're all guilty. I wouldn't pin it all on that school.
All right, but I'm just saying that most of them were. And
look,
so
when I went to school, Roy Gibson was an instructor of mine. I think you may have
what a
worked
good
for him.
guy.
Yeah.
And so was Milt Holstein. So was Deanne Evans. And many others that
All
were
great
prominent
journalists.
teaching,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
were passing this on to how to do this. Perry Sorensen,
Yeah.
how to do this and do it right, and really how to, and you were driven to believe in the public service of it. And they were good mentors. And I don't know who the instructors are at the U any longer. It was the communications school, the journalism school, all's wrapped up in communications somewhere. It's a room up there somewhere.
It used to be in the annex, didn't it?
Well, it had several locations over time, but and I'm not knocking the students for doing that.
No.
But there's no, even if they did have that instructor, it's like Randall said, where do they go? Because the people they would go to work for would say, hey, don't ask Ron anything tough. Ask Ron about the color of his shirt. Because you don't have to know anything. We just want you to just smile for the camera.
Well, it's an interesting thing to see, because I do think that there are probably still good journalists out there.
Ben Winslow
You don't
might
know
be
that.
filling that hole and not too many others are filling it like Ben does.
Yeah, we
Locally, maybe, and I don't want to leave anybody out. I don't mean to, but certainly it's not the big audience,
no.
big ball of marbles it used to be.
And the
So-
competition. I mean, because
Right.
we had good people at every station, and we were all competing against
Yes,
each other.
I think of Bob Loy and
Yeah,
John Harrington.
sure.
Who were, and I really love both of them. Great guys.
Absolutely.
Bob's wife, Debbie, actually worked for me a little bit. She was a public defender in Oklahoma, and when they moved to back out of here to Hawaii, I think she got a public defender job back there too. Really great lawyer, good person. But Loy and Harrington, they competed against one another.
Sure.
But you know what? I never, and I'm just using them two as an example. I never heard either one of them badmouth the other. Really, they didn't. And they were really in competition. And I liked both of them a lot. And they were really good media journalists. My brother had a prejudice against media journalists. I mean,
You're talking about TV broadcast.
broadcast
Yeah.
journalists. I mean, and print people do, but
There's a couple of good radio people too, by the way.
oh, they were great.
They're still currently.
Yeah, who?
Fabrizio is one. Bob Nelson is another. Maria Chaleos.
Yeah,
People like that on the public radio station. Well, are they? Yeah, they're KWR.
She's on KSL.
KSL? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's some still on the radios. But what happened in our case, the City Weekly, we kind of benefited from all this stuff going crappy for TV. Because our first editor was Tom Walsh, who was a TV
That's
guy.
right. That's true.
And one of the early writers for us was John Harrington, who was a TV guy.
TV guy.
And Walsh brought in Lynn Packer, who was a TV guy.
Right.
All these guys that were once doing fine journalism in broadcast media didn't have a home. And we became that home for them, sort of like Jim Acosta lands up on Substack or something
Right.
today. It's not really a lot different. They came to, we were able to recruit them and do news stories that no one was doing, literally.
And they
for a
probably
decade.
wanted to do.
Very much wanted to do. I mean,
Right. Plus, they didn't have the constraint of a minute 30
Right.
to
Right.
do their piece. And that's what you guys stuck
Well,
with.
yeah,
it. So, you
Lynn
know,
Packer was good for the 30,000 word story. He did research that he researched research.
and kudos to you guys for hiring those people and sticking with it. And
He was good, and I still to this day say they should name awards after that guy.
Well, but I think that the point that of us talking to you two today is that the awards belong to the two of you as well. I don't know. I think I told you this when I bumped into you coming into Bill's studio.
You should hear this, John. We were like two old ladies
Yeah.
in a grocery store, and we both have carts.
Yeah.
And we say, "Oh, hi, Ron. Hi, Randall."
It's kinda
So,
like
you
that.
know, so
Both of
people
us
are trying
limp.
to get by us.
Both
You
of us
weren't
limping.
both fighting over the last container of Rolaids or anything like
Oh
that.
no! I wouldn't fight over that. I'd fight over the last beer, but I'm not going to fight over that.
You wouldn't have to do that with me anymore.
But the thing about it is that when I look back at that time and I look back at those people, and it's not like I didn't argue with some of them. I did. I mean, we would butt heads about stuff, but I admired. Again, it goes to what I believe I tried to do as a lawyer. And I really made it a point. And the people that I respected, and the judges, the prosecutors, defense attorneys, civil lawyers, is these were all people, and the two of you here, who believed in what you were doing and that you looked at it as something more than a job, and both probably made good money. I did. And you looked at it, but you know what? Would never sacrifice anything for money when you were on the way to find the truth. And I miss that, man. I miss the really good columnists in newspapers, the journalistic columnists too, in the electronic media, the people that could give you an opinion that was premised upon their knowledge and of what they were talking about and their live story. Those things were awesome on top of it all. And I don't think we have much of that anymore. We have some, but I don't think we have much of that anymore.
Well,
That's
again,
my opinion.
It all goes back to money. I mean, it's whatever is going to be profitable for the owner of whatever source the information is being disseminated on. And you can. What strikes me when I was in Detroit, people, and that was back in the 70s, when TV crews would go out to cover a story, they had a sound guy, a lighting guy, a reporter, and a producer. Okay, so that's 4 people. Now, and it started just going away, and now the ones you're talking about that you've run into are called MMJs, multimedia journalists, and it's a one-man show.
Yeah.
And they hire them for like $30,000 a year to start out of college because they want to be on TV.
Right.
Okay, and it's a horrible job lugging the camera around, even though it's smaller than they used to be. And then you shoot the story, you ask the questions, you come back to the station, you ingest the stuff into the computer system, you pick the sound bites, you write the story, and then you have to do different versions of it for 4, 5, and 6 o'clock, and maybe even a live shot. So you got to have all that done, and they're paying you $30,000 a year. Well, so what, so there's heavy burnout.
The thing of it is if, and I don't know that, I'm not surprised that they underpaid them, but when you do the math on it from the publisher's side or the TV owner's side, the profit side is more than it's ever been, and yet they're paying less than they've ever paid.
Well,
and it doesn't, it's just ridiculous. Whatever, when it was during Reagan's term, when the news medias were allowed to have like multiple ownerships in one city. So like whatever it was here, KSL, the LDS Church had KSL, and the Deseret News, and the radio station. And that was it. You could max out at 3 or 4, whatever it was. And then you couldn't have others in other cities, all kinds of stuff. When that went away and the consolidation took place, then the competition went away too. So all of a sudden, we're watching Channel 2, and it's a Sinclair-owned station, and I had no idea who Sinclair is, except that I think they're kind of the devil. And somebody back east is pulling a switch after he's having a martini with somebody in the Trump cabinet, and they figure out what's going to be the storyline. I'm not talking facetiously here. We already talked about how people in journalism hung out with cops and politicians and so on like that. It's not somebody with a direct line and they're telling them what to do and say, but it's happening. There's this kind of cooperative kind of work going. They're big donors to a certain political party and campaign, president. So next thing you know, I'm sitting in Salt Lake and wondering, for example, and this one is not a good example, but it's how it happens. Most of Utah might be against the data center, and all of a sudden, somebody at Sinclair, who's a friend of Kevin O'Leary, comes on, and suddenly the news is all about the benefits of this thing. And it's not done from here locally. It's not talking to somebody locally. It's being channeled through this whole network of them passing a message on that is not good. And so local journalism is taking a beating as a result.
You don't know who's pulling their chain.
You don't know exactly.
And it's funny you say about the Hatch family or KSL. We always had a pretty good idea of at least what their politics were. And everybody knew that. But you also watched all 3 of those. Sometimes, and it was before VHS and Betamax, I mean, you might have 2 TVs, and if it was a big story, you would watch, if you only had one, you'd watch KTVX at 5, and then the competitors in the evening, you wanted to see their takes on it. And again, a lot of that had to do with trust. A lot of that had to do with trust with what people were saying and people wanting to get a full view of the news. And I really did love that. You think about in radio, I mean, we had Will Lucas first, and then Barberi and Mike on call, and even Hans Peterson, my buddy, for a while. And then on KSL, they had Doug Wright and other people like that. But they were good people, and you didn't ever get the feeling, I never did, that anybody on those news programs was lying to. They may have a different view of life than I did. I had to factor that in. That's just being a good lawyer or, being smart. But I never felt that they were lying to me. I don't know who to trust today. I don't. And that's what troubles me. So that leads to my next question. So do we ever find journalism again?
Well, yeah, but people are still practicing journalism. They just have no audience. You know, there's a lot of people out doing the best they can do, but they don't have the mass that the guys used to have. I mean, there are people that are blogging that are good. There are people who are on social media who are good. There are people who submit articles all the time who are good. But that's actually, truthfully, dying. We don't get a lot of people knocking on our doors to be a writer or, hey, we got a great story. We don't get leads like we used to get. Hey, I've got something happening here, the homeless this or the drinking that or whatever. But, you know, when I was referring to, like, the local ownership, I'm one of them. I've always said didn't bother me 5 cents if the church owned KSL or the Deseret News, because of what you said. We already know where they're coming from.
Right.
But they happen to be pretty good most of the time.
Yes.
Dick Norris was a friend of mine.
No.
A good guy. I don't know if you got along with Dick. I sure did.
No,
and you know, the whole deal there, I liked those people. And that wasn't really it. But here's what was KSL, you knew who they were. They were, just call it right-leaning. And Channel 2 back then might have been left-leaning.
Right.
Yes.
And Channel 4 somewhere in the middle, if that, maybe a little bit left.
Because Channel 4 was owned by people in Los Angeles.
Yes.
You know, not local.
And this is kind of predating Fox out at 9 o'clock. I used to watch the news from the local news at 5, then watch the national, 5:30 watch the national news, local news at 6, then again watch the local news at 10 in case something happened.
Yeah, I was the same way.
And then, you know, then it became 9, and when I couldn't stay up to 10 o'clock, I watched Fox a lot. But now I don't hardly watch any of them, and I do tune in if I think it's important, but they soon drift off to some, you know, let's smell the flower story. But here's the thing. Back then, those 3 independently owned, or basically independently owned, media gave you different channels of performances, or you could tune in whatever. Now, with those other 2, 4, and channel NBC and CBS, was that right? Well, they've changed many times. Channel 4 and Channel 2
and Channel
4 are more like KSL used to be.
Right.
It's moved that way because that's the national kind of trend.
Because they're corporate owners.
Yeah, they've moved that way. And meanwhile, Fox, that on the national scale, is just the demon to me. It's actually pretty good locally, again, with Ben Winslow and a couple others over there. So, like, you know.
But they're owned by Scripps.
Yes.
And Scripps is cutting back, and they're losing a lot of people.
Well, when you talk about the money involved, Michelle King.
Yeah.
And I have just this independent memory of this. Bob Loy was talking to me one day, and I don't know. It was a case I had that he was interested, but he's in the office, and he had a beeper, and it beeped, and he said, "Can I use your phone?" Yeah, and so he goes into my office, and I left, and I could hear him yelling. Okay, and we get back, and I go, "Do you want to tell me what that was about?" And he goes, "I can't tell you." He goes, "But, who were you yelling at?" And he said, "I can't tell you who I was yelling at, but I was yelling about Michelle King because they don't know what they have." This is when she was a young one. She goes, "They don't know what they have in her, and they may let her go." And I was telling whoever it was how stupid you are. You have someone here that is a superstar, and you're thinking about letting her go. And he told me later about that, and he was just saying, "I told her, I'll quit. Let me be your manager. You're going to make a lot of money." Yeah. And which apparently she ultimately did. And she was really good on TV.
Michelle was like, she was like pretty, typical. If you looked at her and listened to her, she's like typical Utah female, stereotypical.
Yeah.
I mean,
extremely trustworthy.
Yes, and so anyway, this left-leaning newspaper always accoladed her with best newswoman on TV for years. She was always winning. Same when you were winning. Michelle was winning on the other side of it. Yeah. And I just thought that was just fantastic. She was greatly respected.
Well, she was.
I think you're right. I think undeservedly she didn't get the attention she deserved, but I think she was very, very good. Mary Nichols is really a good friend. I love Mary. Mary's really good. And she, unfortunately, she's where she is. But Mary's a good person. She's a good reporter. Yeah, and I like Mary.
But I think Loy was probably right. You're going to get rid of her, you're an idiot. Because she was there for a long, long time. Who's the lady with you on KTVA?
Kimberly Perkins.
Kimberly Perkins. She too, you go, Kimberly's not lying to me. Kimberly wouldn't lie to anybody. Right. And so I don't know. I think I do feel that we're lucky that we lived in those times.
After Brian Malahy, now you bring that up, who's
Malahy's
but he's been around a long time.
And he's a good reporter. And he has good contacts.
He started as a reporter, and now he's behind the desk. But name the rest of the teams on all the rest of the three channels.
No, I not.
Seriously.
No, I can't. I don't, because I can't.
Who's the anchor on Channel 4? If you turned it on tonight, who was it?
I don't know, because I too have...
Pass fail. Who's on Channel 5?
I don't know.
Channel 2?
I don't.
Fox.
Bob, I don't know.
Bob. I'm going to
somebody
give you the Bob.
that is an alien from
Bob Evans.
Bob Evans.
but
he's okay.
He's a good guy. But my point on that,
we don't remember him. He used to say Norris Welty James used to come off like everybody's.
They would go into. I mean, the great thing was when Paul James and Welty had been together forever up on Social Avenue. Welty went to Channel 4 and James stayed on Channel 2.
God, it was like news for months.
It was months, and then what happened is, it just like Johnny Carson did with Don Rickles. Before that happened, they took one camera out and walked into the other studio so that Paul James could, or Bob Welty, whichever one it was, could give the other one shit while they were on the air. Because, you gotta love that, because there was such obviously great respect among that group of people.
I don't know who they are, so I don't have a ton of... I'm not saying anything negative, but the industry has changed so much. I know I'm not going to get anything. Well, it's all vanilla. It's not deep-rooted anything news.
They don't want it to be.
That's right.
The thing is...
that's the whole thing.
I don't trust anything anymore. I have trouble because I obviously lean left. Okay, and I see stuff that's like anti-Trump or some weird claims about what's going on in Washington, and I don't believe that any more than I believe right-wing stuff. Right.
It's hard to do. It's hard also not to become a conspiracy theorist.
Exactly.
And we got to worry about that. But I really believe that people like yourselves, Randall and John, I mean, you guys. You made it good to be in Utah during that period of time, because I think we were a fairly highly educated populace at that time. People knew who they were voting for. Remember, we always voted, it seemed like, the most people percentage-wise that would turn out for elections in Utah. And it wasn't just the Mormon church, which you hear a lot from our people on the left saying they tell them to turn. No, it wasn't. There were people that were voting independently. We elected Democrats. We elected Republicans in Democrat-held places at times.
Jan Graham.
Yeah, and Jan and others, someone who truly does not like me. But
Jan?
Yeah, but God bless her. But the thing about it is, we were a pretty smart electorate at that time, all the way around, all the way down to the end in the South and up to the North. We may not have been the best. We might not have been New York City, but people knew who they were voting for, and people knew what they believed in, and people were prepared to discuss it. But we ain't that anymore. And a lot of the reason it was that way had to do because we had the two major papers, and then the Herald and the Substandard Examiner and the Color Country Spectrum. But we had two major papers with good writers, good people running them, and the City Weekly came in and opened up new vistas, and it was all over the state. And we had the three major television stations, and then we had KSL and Call and their satellite stations and some other things. And it was a wonderful time because if you wanted to know the news, you didn't have to wade through a whole lot of bullshit on your tablet to come up with what people were thinking about in Utah and what the issues were.
People signed their name.
And people signed their name.
You know,
Great
this world of anonymous memes and commentary and mean-spirited underneath, just blasting. Every time you open a story online, you start to read. I can't read the comments anymore. We quit even taking comments on City Weekly years ago. We weren't going to get enough eyeballs. People would say, "Oh, you just have to generate clicks, have all that content down there." People just pissed off at each other. It makes no sense.
No,
but back then, now today, Again, name those journalists. They're all anonymous to me.
Yeah.
And I don't have that trust factor built into it. So it's easy to find myself asking, is this real or not?
Yeah.
What I do all the time now, I copy or take an image of it, I put it into AI and said, is this really truthful? Did Trump say this, or did so-and-so say this? And it usually comes back, as often as not, no.
Well, and what's interesting for me, I refuse to give anything to Allen Iverson, and so I will not use AI at all. I just don't do it.
On what predicate? And this isn't even about why.
I'm joking.
Oh,
I mean, to me, I
thought you wouldn't even say AI.
No, but my point is, my point on that goes to something that I want to do right now for a minute. We take some abuse from people for this podcast, and you and I took a little bit recently, and I appreciate that. You want to say that we're baby boomers and we don't know what
You're
we're
entitled.
talking. We're entitled and we don't know what we're talking about. So I have a response to that. It's very simple. It's a poem. I didn't write the poem. This is for those folks that say bad about us, that we have Trump derangement syndrome. So the name of the poem is Alpha, and it's by a guy named Francesco Marciuliano. It was written in 2013, so before
Trump.
And so,
which is, go ahead. I got some. Let's see how this turns out.
Okay, so this is, and the name of this is Alpha. So this is my response to you, who think that we're entitled. You didn't work with us in the pit, on the track gang or anything like that.
Right. Didn't come up in a shack.
And this is what I have to say to you, because I think you might see, this is allegory, but it may come home to some
Just
of
for
you.
clarity, when Ron is saying the word you, he's not talking to me. He's talking to
I'm talking to those of you who are so kind to listen to us, because our wives and children won't. The name of this poem is Alpha. Very short. Scruffles is our leader. Scruffles is our king. Scruffles is the captain of our pack. Scruffles praises we each sing. Scruffles is who we always follow. Scruffles shows us all the way. Scruffles led us to an abandoned factory in the middle of freaking nowhere. And not even a fun abandoned factory, but one that made belt buckles. Now Scruffles is why we are all thinking we really need some sort of voting process, or at least a system of checks and balances. And so that's my answer to those of you who think Saltas and I are, what was the word?
Entitled baby boomers.
And my answer to you is put Agent Orange or Donald Trump where it says Scruffles, because that's who you are. You let him lead you into an abandoned factory because you'll follow him anywhere as long as you have this idea that he is for you. He isn't for you, and he isn't for any of us. He's for himself.
Well, he's the guy that exploited all of those changes that were already happening in media. Smart enough to see by using the term fake news, which actually he began using in the 80s. And this is, you and I have said on here many times, my disgust with him began in the 70s. It really peaked at the early age with the World Football League. Told you that story.
Yeah.
We've been through all this. The Central Park Five killed those 5 guys who were all innocent. Let's execute them. All the way through the nasty things he's been saying. So this is not new. It's not derangement for me. It's just like, no, don't get pissed off at me and don't call me names because I was paying attention. You have, the line draws with me. If you didn't know who Donald Trump was before 2013 or 2005 or whenever it was when you saw him on The Apprentice, you are not entitled to talk in this conversation because every piece of his history up to that point would have disqualified him and any other normal person from ascending to a menial task in city politics, let alone ascending to the presidency of the United States. And if you didn't pay attention then for this past 30 or 40 years prior to him becoming that guy who's now exploited all of those little nuances of us and fake, hoax, and we don't believe anything, you're already leaning that way and pushing you over the cliff, shame on you.
Right.
Shame on you. That's Trump. TSS, Trump shameful in syndrome. Anyway, Randall.
Yes.
that was a diversion because I want to talk. Who were some of the people in this market that you thought, wow, they're good. I'm going to try to keep up with them. Was there anybody that? I mean, you knew you were king, right? So I mean, kind of hard for
back
you.
then.
Yeah, then and now.
Now I don't. I mean, I watched local news. I get home around 4 and watch a 4, 5, and 6 o'clock news and network show, and they're all nobody's compelling to watch or listen to. I listen to KSL in the mornings when I get up because they're the only station that has a newsroom that does news.
Yeah.
And I read both papers and yours, and I just, my problem is I know what's going on, and I know why people are what they are, and I know why stations are what they are now because I worked at Channel 4 when it was taken over by Nexstar, and Nexstar's even growing bigger, taking over another chain of stations, and I know that policy is dictated. Nexstar's based in Dallas, and I mean even to the point that the Channel 4's weather people have to use, every Nexstar station has to use the same graphics for weather for.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the whole computer system is based out of Dallas. And I mean, I'll never forget one time the computer system went down. And it was like, who's around to fix this? And it wasn't ours, it was theirs. And so and it was on a weekend. And so we had to do a newscast without a computer, which is almost impossible to do now. And it's scary because I'm sure the FCC is going to allow anybody to own as much as they want to own at some point. And then they'll be controllable by Trump saying fire
Jimmy Kimmel.
Fire Jimmy Kimmel.
Because those are the last people of real voices left. The news industry abandoned that. There's no guy that sits at the end of it like, who was the guy who used to be on the end of 60 Minutes? The curmudgeon-y kind of fellow.
And Andy Rooney.
Andy Rooney. But even here locally, there was somebody that come on at not all of them, but certain news stations at the end, they'd say, and here's where we sit, and a policymaker, whomever they are.
Really good guy was with KSL, and I can't think of his name, but
I don't even know those voices anymore.
But here's the deal. You want to know what the real proof in the pudding that we have drifted so far away from the days of Randall Carlisle and others like that, great journalists, and yourself, is that Randall Carlisle was almost speechless as he was talking about how he felt about things today. It's like me being speechless about things about the law because you know what? It hurts. It just hurts to know how important it was for the fabric of our society and what we believed in and the idea that there isn't an alternative truth, there is truth. And you pursue truth.
The thing, you're right, and no longer is truth the thing. The display, the spectacle is the thing.
Big picture, though, all three of us are a lot closer to death than we are towards middle age or being youngsters.
Well, no kidding.
Well, I don't know about that.
Come on.
I'll be 76 next Friday, and you will be 77. What is it?
On the 23rd.
The 23rd. So,
John, how old?
I'm going to be 65.
Oh, youngster. Okay, I shouldn't have included you.
No kidding.
But what I'm saying is...
I've got ties that are older than you.
But we're looking to the past, and we can't say anything really good about journalism in the present.
No, or we've had this discussion about the law too. But the end line is, and you guys can finish, but I do believe this. There's hope because there are people who care. There are still people who care, and it's going to be hard and it's going to take maybe forever, but somehow Americans have the ability to know truth from lies, fake from truth. The fact that new Coke and old Coke are the same thing. We have that ability, and it's just a matter of getting people to determine that they want to do it and pursue it. I have that hope.
I think you're right, but I do wonder if truth matters to some of these people because it doesn't matter.
No, of course it doesn't.
To some people, it's just like they just want to be on the winning team. And that doesn't matter if it's true or not. They just want to root for the red hat. So until that happens en masse, it's not going to be a big deal. It's not going to be easy to change. And I don't see, like Randall doesn't see, a lot of young, aggressive fighting for the story.
They burn out.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who have done that MMJ thing, and they were happy to be on TV for a year or two,
people used to
making $30,000 a year, but they burn out because they can make more money doing just about anything else.
Barista makes more money. So it used to be if you cracked a story, it meant a lot.
Yes.
I broke that story.
Right.
I was above the fold in the paper. I was the lead story on Channel 4. Randall talked to me on the side.
Van Oker breaking the story about the Olympic scandal.
Yeah.
I mean, that stuck with him forever.
I like him too.
Okay.
You know what? But what you're saying is gets to where we can wrap this up, and yet you found a new vocation.
Yeah.
And so I want to know whether from John and I if you will come back and talk to us about your new vocation
Sure, would
sometime.
love to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Randall. Thank you, John. You know what? You were perfect today. You were. I've been told.
An endorsement from the man.
I've been told by you that I'm mean to you, and I don't mean
Really?
to.
Who said that?
You didn't say the word mean. You used the Greek word for it, and so I just want you to know.
Today?
See, he forgets. He could be 76 or 77.
All right.
But anyway, great job, and thank you, Randall.
Thank you, Ron. Kind words.
Peace and love, everybody. 2 weeks from today, God willing, and the creeks don't rise, as we say here in Utah.
They're not going to rise, Ron.
That's true. Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
They're
They're not rising.
There will be no creeks
They peaked.
rising, no.